Thank you for listening to this episode, and follow the podcast on social media by finding at Prestigious Pod. And if you'd like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life, you can reach out to me, Chris Bean, at Chris Bean Official, or by emailing the podcast directly at prestigiousInitiative@gmail.com. Lastly, sign up for our newsletter either through social media or on our website. This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean. Today's episode features Ralph Velasco, a seasoned travel photographer and the founder of Continental Drifter. Ralph has led over 120 international tours. He is passionate about sharing the beauty of the world through photography. Ralph, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, Chris.
So, Ralph, why would somebody want to listen to our conversation here today?
Well, I think if someone's interested in small business and how someone like myself, I always say it only took me 45 years to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Most people never do, so I'm happy it happened that quickly. But I guess I was a little bit of a late bloomer. But if people are interested in learning about a fun story about how I came to do what I'm doing, which is a pretty great life, I think they'd love the show.
Wonderful. So, Ralph, after such a diverse career, you said you found what you wanted to do after 45 years. What sparked the change? And I guess what challenges did you face in trying to make the shift over to what you're doing now?
Yeah, it was, as I said, a long road. I mean, I've done a lot of different things professionally, from owning several restaurants. It's a third generation restaurateur. So I had several restaurants. I was sold real estate. I was a marketing director for a division of a Fortune 500 company. And at around 45, I moved back to Southern California. So just to back up a little bit, in 2001, 2000, I would say was sort of the dawn of digital photography, and at least consumer digital photography. And so I saw an opportunity to create some what I call photo walking tours for people to teach them how to use these new digital devices that were coming out. And I got some good feedback on that. However, I was living in Chicago at the time, and I was at the end of my initial 3-year lease on my restaurant. So I had to decide if I was going to sign for another 5 years, or was I going to sell or do something else. So I decided to sell, and found a buyer. And what I wanted to do was, again, teach people how to learn how to use these new digital devices that were coming, like that new 1 megapixel Kodak Easy Share camera. That was my first digital camera. And so I make a long story longer. I decided that Chicago probably wasn't the best place to start it because, as you know, being from the area, the weather's not great, maybe 4 to 6 months out of the year, although I think it gets a bad rap. Um, so I said, I moved back to Southern California. A friend of mine had a financial brokerage out there, and he said, "Why don't you get your Series 7 license, become a financial advisor, come work for me?" And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And then I could start creating these classes and walking tours at night and on weekends. And so another tip for your listeners is, if you're looking to test a business idea, perhaps create a course at the local, uh, in my case, it was the city of Newport Beach, where I was living at the time, where you've got these adult education programs. You don't need to have a teaching degree to teach them. Anyone could do it. And so it was a great way to test my idea. And that's how I got started.
Yeah. Okay. So then, where did you learn about photography from then?
Yeah, I was kind of self-taught. Grew up, my father was interested in photography. He instilled that in me. He didn't have a lot of time to do it, for pleasure, but he was a good photographer. He had a really good eye, and passed on his cameras to me. So I'd always been interested in photography, and I was always a traveler. So I've been traveling since I was 15, and I was a volunteer in Peru for a summer. Oh no, 15. I studied in Spain. in Madrid for a summer. Next summer, I was a volunteer in Peru. The next summer, I was a volunteer in Venezuela. And the next summer, I studied in Mexico City. So from a pretty young age, I'd been traveling internationally. And so I always enjoyed photography, got some good feedback about my photography. So I always thought that ever figuring out how to make a living from travel and photography was about as likely as my becoming a rock star. But with the dawn of with digital photography coming, with internet, social media, all these different things, this perfect storm came together to make this a viable thing.
Okay, so photography is always something I have been interested in, and there seems to be kind of two ways, and I'm curious on where you stand here because you seemingly grew up in the film ages, and now moved to the digital age. Have we made it to the point where digital photography has eclipsed or can replicate enough of that digital or that film analog feeling so that we can finally move past, or is there still a place for the digital, or is there still a place for the analog?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think, as you surely know, it's improving every year, the digital side. But we are getting better at recreating those feels of different films and stock and things like that. But I always have said that with photography, there's always a trade-off.
Mm.
So you get one feature, but you probably give up another one or something like that. So with I think that the convenience of now I'm shooting almost exclusively with my smartphone,
Mm.
and mainly because I'm shooting more video. And so I knew I wanted to make it become I wanted it to be very easy for me to be able to get these shots. I didn't want to carry another device around. So I wanted to be able to shoot with my phone, and I bought a gimbal, and it's beautiful. You can get some really nice shots and video. So, but with the analog photography, there's still a place for that, but I don't in my what I do, and I'm on the road 8, 9 months out of the year. I'm constantly moving around the world. So for me, it's not worth the wait and inconvenience versus the quality of that analog versus digital. So again, it's a trade-off, and I can't see going back to film, but some people do.
Yeah, I
Have.
think for me, the biggest benefit that you get for digital is one, you don't have to deal with trying to go to the dark room and process your own photos yourself if you're doing that, or outsource that to somebody else. But on top of that, once you have those prints from the analog, you have to find a place to put them. You have to make sure you know where they are. You have to catalog them so you can like view them or look at them if and when you wanted to. But with digital, unless we lose the files or they get corrupt or something, we have them almost instantaneous in a way that we can look at them and view them and share them with other people that we miss out on with the analog counterpart.
100%. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The convenience of the phone, because now I can not only get photographs, but I can, with a flick of a button, I get video,
Hmm.
time lapse, slow motion, sound, you name it. There's just an incredible. I could share it directly from there. I can edit it within the app. I mean, how convenient is that?
Yeah, right.
So that's worth a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so Ralph, what inspired you to create the Continental Drifter? And then maybe give me a little bit of background about what you do and how that program works.
Yeah, so for the past 16 years, 2008, the day after the financial crisis, is when I said I went full time into doing this full time because I was a financial advisor, a newbie advisor in 2005 to 8, which we all know what happened in September of 2008. We had the massive financial crisis. So here I am, a new financial advisor, just eking a live, barely scraping by, trying to beg people to give me money to invest, and no one's got any money, and the stock market crashes. And so it was brutal, but it was the kick in the pants that I needed to go full time and say, okay, I'm burning all the bridges, putting that behind me, and I'm going forward with with this thing, and we're going to make it happen come hell or high water. So that that's what I did. Not sure if that answered your question.
Well, sure. Okay, so how did your idea of organizing tours around your passion for
Okay.
photography help to lead people through an opportunity to explore different cultures and allow that to come to life?
Yeah, so one of the things I've always enjoyed is sharing the places that I go to with friends and family. We all do. We love to go to these places, get photos and video, and tell the stories about the places that we've seen. So I've always enjoyed doing that. Got some good feedback about my photography, so felt that perhaps I could learn this more and teach it. So I started self-teaching myself even more, especially when it came to digital photography. And then started creating these 2-hour walking tours where I'd really just sit across the kitchen table from someone and go over their camera from top to bottom and explain how to use it. And then we would go out into the local neighborhood, which was, the beach or wherever in Southern California, and photograph and put those skills to use. And then I started creating the core classes at night and on weekends. And, I would speak in front of anyone interested in photography or travel. And so then when I burned the bridges and I started doing this, my first international trip was to the Central European Christmas markets. And I brought a group there and we had a great time. Um, but before that, I was doing the walking tours. I was doing Southern California. I was bringing groups to Joshua Tree and Death Valley National Parks. I was bringing groups back to Chicago so I could get a free ride home. And that became one of my very popular trips because I never realized how many people in Southern California had never been to Chicago. Um, but it grew very incrementally, and especially when I started concentrating on it alone, the tours. And then I said, you know what, I'm just going to create international tours only. And so now I almost exclusively do international tours.
Okay, so with that kind of idea or mindset for your business, how many how many clients do you have that come with you on lots of different tours because they're going to different places?
Yeah, I've got all 5-star reviews over 16 years, nothing but 5-star reviews for my trips. So I think that says something. But also, I get over 50% repeat rate on my trips. So people coming back to my trips over and over again, referring their friends and family, bringing friends and family. I've got some clients that have been on 12, 15 trips of mine. And I've got one that's been on at least 25 plus of my trips. And he just signed up yesterday for my upcoming Cuba trip next week, that it'll be his fourth time to Cuba with me.
Wow.
And I've done Cuba 20 times now. So that's kind of my specialty. Cuba is the trip that I've done the most. And it's not easy to get into Cuba. So you have to go with someone like me, unless you sneak through the back door, which I don't recommend. So, which you can do, but don't recommend it. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so Ralph, with your extensive experience in travel photography, what are some most common mistakes that travelers make when they're taking photos, and what are some ways that they can improve their skill as they're going?
Well, one of the very obvious things that is, I think, a simple tip that anyone can correct with any kind of camera is to simply watch your backgrounds.
Mm,
What's happening behind your subject? Is that proverbial tree coming out of their head, or is the horizon going right through their neck? Is the horizon off? Is it not level? So things like that. Now that's also with regards to things in front of the subject, because as you move around, those things sort of change. The perspective changes. So being aware of that, because sometimes I think, especially when we're new, we get really caught up in the subject and we forget what's going on in front or behind them. That can really affect the photograph. And Anyone could do that with any kind of camera. You just move a little bit and you'll see the front and background change in respect to the subject. I think that's a really simple tip. The other one is being aware of the quality and direction of light and how it's falling on your subjects. How are the shadows? Are they wearing a baseball cap? Do you need some fill flash to fill in those shadows? Another very simple tip, maybe have the subject move, or if you can, move the light source, move them in or out of the shade. I prefer subjects usually in shade, where it's a more even light than a harsh sunlight or light source. So those are tips. And then the other one would be to look for variety.
Mm.
Um, we've got landscape photographers, portrait photographers, architecture photographers, people that specialize in certain genres of photography, certain types of photography. Uh, I say that a travel photographer needs to be a jack of all genres, master of some. And so if you can get good at some genres, but also capture images and others. Now, I created an iPhone app way back about 14 years ago that was called My Shot Lists for Travel. It's not available on the App Store anymore. Unfortunately, it's got updated out. But I created an ebook called Essence of a Place, how to use a shot list for capturing the essence of a place. And the idea was there was 52 categories, 52 different types of shots, night scenes, interiors, people, recreation, things like that. And if you could say pick 30 of those subjects and get 5 good shots in each category, you've got 150 good shots that tell the story of that place. So that's the idea. As a travel photographer, we want to tell the story of the place, not just show plates of food or selfies or all portraits.
Okay, so
So
that brings up a good point though, because I think that sometimes when people go to vacation, if they are too much behind the lens of their camera or behind the phone, then they're missing out on the things that's actually going on. So trying to find the essence of the place and capture that and make that the story that you're telling within the photographs that you're taking as you go, then you are then strategically looking for ways to live to let's see, to provide the story through the camera via the photo that you're taking from behind the camera.
no doubt. And I just recently I came up with a 3 books I've written over the past year, and they're all in a series called The Mindful and Intentional Traveler. But I've bundled them all into one book so that people could buy one book and get all 3. But um, I created this book because as photographers, we are the worst when it comes to. I realized that I would go to these beautiful places. I've done hundreds of trips over the past 16 years, and I would come home and I've got the credit card receipts and the passport stamps and the pictures and video, but I started to think, was I really there mentally?
Mm.
Because all I remember is seeing the place through the viewfinder of my camera. And my first book is called 101 Tips for Developing Your Photographic Eye and More. And the last tip in the book is to put the camera down. And I realized that I should probably make that the first tip in the book. Get in the habit of putting the camera down and actually taking in the place intentionally and not seeing it through the viewfinder of a camera. So that's why I wrote the books, to impress people to be here now. I say travel photography is 2 words. Spend as much time traveling as photographing. Put the camera down, soak in the place. One of the books is about using your 5+ senses. So touch, feel, taste, the surroundings here, and set a timer for yourself every hour or two to remind you to do that, to just stop, look, listen, feel the place that you are. Because otherwise, you're going to find yourself going through with your eye to the viewfinder, and we miss out a lot by doing that.
And of course, if you can be more mindful, you have all the senses involved with where you are, then you're going to be able to, if your intention is to tell the story through the photos that you're taking while you're there. If you are only looking through the viewfinder of the camera, you're going to miss out on those things. But if you can put that down, set a reminder in your phone, your watch, or whatever, say, hey, just be aware of what's going on around you, then you're going to be able to be aware of those things. You'll be more apt to take those photographs that are more meaningful for you, that'll tell that story even clearer on the other end, and you'll be actually able to remember, one, that you were there, and remember taking those pictures that you're taking.
100%. And um, I'm probably a little bit older than you, but I've been traveling for quite a while. And as I get older, the more I appreciate what I call traveling deep, not wide.
Mm.
So doing a deeper dive into less places than doing a cursory overview of a lot of different places. And, when I was younger and I had more energy and, time and less sense, I would, be running around a country or a region or a continent trying to see as much as possible, because I would tick those things off my bucket list. Well, the older I get, the more I realize who cares about that, but it's more about the experiences that we have and that we can feel and take with us. And I'd rather have less of those than a bunch of cursory just touches of different places.
Right. So I know a key aspect of your tours is that cultural immersion. Can you share a memorable story where you saw a traveler's life change or be deepened because of that connection that they made with where they were?
I can't tell you how many times I've had people. What I love to do is to bring my people to meet local craftspeople,
Mm.
businessmen, just the locals. Maybe we go and have a cup of tea in their houses or at their place of business, learn how they make flamenco guitars or other instruments or whatever the craft is that they do. And I love to introduce my people to those locals. And I've seen many clients just spark up and like they can't believe that they're doing this. One gentleman that we meet in Armenia, Vanadzor, Armenia, he makes what are called hachkars. And they look like a headstone, but they're used for many different purposes. And they can be as, 3 feet, 4 feet high and, 2, 3 feet wide. So they're big and they're hand carved and they take a long time to make. But we go to this man's workshop. He shows us how he makes these things. It's a very traditional thing in Armenia, but he's got this incredible personality. He loves to sing. He gets everyone singing. He's, really fun with the ladies. He's kind of a ladies' man, and the ladies just love him. Super charming. And so many people say, Ralph, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had meeting a local, because the guy is just so animated and friendly, and you just feel so welcome. So I love that, and I live for that stuff when I'm, bringing my groups to places to share the world with them.
Okay, so as somebody who is establishing that connection with that local person, whether it's you for the business or an individual who's traveling somewhere, how do you foster that type of connection with the locals in such a way that is beneficial for the traveler?
I work with local tour operators in the destination who help me put these trips together. And I ask them specifically to introduce us or to me because I do a scouting trip a year in advance before I take anyone. And I'll go there and I'll see everything, test everything, try the hotels, meet the guides, etc. And I tell them, boy, are there any special interesting characters around that do certain things? And they'll inevitably introduce me to someone because there always is.
Sure.
And so otherwise, what I will do is like in Madrid, I mentioned the flamenco guitar maker. This happened to be in Madrid, Spain. We were in our hotel. I'm in my hotel scouting. I'm walking down the street. I look sort of in the basement of the hotel. You could see, a business down there, and this guy's making guitars. So I knocked on the window and I said, "Can I come in and, see what you're doing?" I speak Spanish, so that helped. He said, "Yeah, come on in." So I started bringing my groups there, and he loved having, showing people what he does. We ended up going to the big flamenco show there in Madrid, and his guitars were being used by the guitarists at the show because they have sort of a signature on the head of the guitar at the end. And so we said, "Hey, that's I forgot the gentleman's name, but that's Jose's guitars. Wow, really cool." So those are the kinds of things that you're probably not going to see those on most other tours. How they make the local cheese or the local firewater. Like in Romania, they're famous for making this local brandy out of the apples and pears and things. So we go see how they make that. We taste it. Caviar tasting. We go into a caviar farm in southern France, where you can actually get into the tanks with these huge sturgeon that weigh 300 pounds, maybe not that much, 100 pounds, and pick them up and stuff. So it's just really fun stuff like that that people really enjoy because they want to. Nowadays, people want experiential travel. I think they want to learn a language. They want to learn a skill like photography, learn about wine and food and the locals. I mean, who doesn't want to do that?
Okay, so as I'm trying to piece together your types of trips, so you talked about traveling deep and not wide. How long, and maybe it would vary on the place that you're at, but how long is a standard that you would stay in one location, like on one trip, let's say?
Yeah. Yeah, it does vary. Like my Cuba trip, we spend 7 nights in Havana, and that's it. But we do a deep dive into Havana. We go out to the Vinales Valley, which is where the tobacco region is. So we see how they do that. We do a lot of things in Havana. We're going to go to the local ballet theater, visit the Grand Theater to do a tour. So a lot of different boxing gym, Hemingway's house, a lot of cool things like that. But we pack and unpack once. Um, my France trip, we spend 7 nights in an 11th century private castle. And so we pack and unpack once, and then we do hub and spoke, and we just hit local villages nearby, but we come back to the castle every night. Again, pack and unpack once, deep dive. So people love that. My groups tend to be 45 and plus age groups, so a little bit older. And so they're not, I mean, we still do zip lining and things like that, dog sledding, and, some more active type things depending on the trip. But obviously, everything's optional and people can decide if they want to do those types of things or not.
Yeah. Okay, man, that's really cool. Okay, so
Yeah.
Ralph, what are some challenging aspects of trying to organize a tour that's like this, these international tours? You talked about going there and scouting it, a year in advance. Your mission, it seems is to provide a seamless, extraordinary experience for all of your clients. So what does the kind of prep work, the challenging part of that look like ahead of time?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, as you can imagine. I mean, I'm sure you've arranged travel for yourself or your friends or family, and you know what goes into that. But, well, when it's ranging it for 10 or 12 people. Now, my groups are typically from 6 to 10 people, plus me, got local guides, so the groups are very small. They're big enough that I can spread common costs across people and make it more reasonable for everyone, but uh it's big enough that there's camaraderie, people get to meet other people. I get a lot of single.
Uh-oh. Ralph, I think I lost you there. Can you hear me? Can
people on the trip,
Oh, there we go.
strength in number. Excuse me.
Oh,
Did I?
it cut out there for a second. I don't know if there was an internet issue or not. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. But yeah, single women come on these trips because they like to have strength in numbers,
Mm,
have the camaraderie of other people. You're by yourself, but everyone immediately becomes really good friends. Maybe you go out and grab a drink on a free night or have a meal or whatever. But my trips are typically a half day scheduled, half day free time,
mm.
so people can go out and explore on their own. Again, we're not trying to shove too many things down their throat. Let them rest or sit by the pool or go to a cafe or do something that isn't on the itinerary that maybe is a special interest of theirs. And then, but you still got this great structure of a trip, but you still have that free time to make your own memories.
Okay, so then as the guide, as the leader in this group, I got two questions for you that kind of connect to those. One, with the, like half day schedule and the other half day is free time. Are you planning things on the free time, or are you enjoying yourself in the free time? Is the first question, and then the second one: um, how many photos are you taking while you're there versus guiding and instructing the clients?
Yeah. Do you mean personally?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as photos go, I'm taking a lot less now because, I take less as I go to the places over and over again. But I do like to take pictures of the same things.
Mm,
Oftentimes they're different season or light or time of day, whatever it is. So I will take pictures, and then you can look at those over a period of time, which is interesting. Um, I'm sorry, the first part of the question.
So
Uh,
you have that half day schedule. So you're
oh yeah.
scheduled for half day, the other half day. What are you doing as the guide
Oh,
on the second
personally.
half? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, personally. So, what I'm doing is my other work, because I've got 5 or 6 other trips coming up. So I'm planning on those. Perhaps I'm winding down from the past 1 or 2 trips because there's always things to do after a trip. Maybe I'm resting or I'm going sitting by the pool or getting a spa treatment. But typically I'm working during my people's free time. That's because when I'm on a trip, I don't get a lot of my regular work done. I'm on the trip,
Sure.
so yeah.
Okay. So what okay, so if we could distill three essential tips for somebody looking to capture great travel photos while they're on the move, while they're traveling, what would be the three top tips that you would provide?
One would be to not be afraid or to be bold. And what I mean by that is oftentimes it's difficult for us to photograph people. I know it started out that way for me. I was shy. Especially if I love markets. So if I'm at a market, and someone's working, I don't want to bother them. So I like to take a lot of candid photographs where people don't necessarily know I'm photographing them. I like those more natural looks as opposed to, smiling and, giving the peace sign or something. But so yeah, being bold and not being afraid to approach people. If they're not too busy, if they're in the sunlight, like I said, maybe they're at an outdoor market and you can ask them to move to something that's shade, or someone could hold up a reflector, something, if you have that capability, that would make the shop better. But typically, I don't want to bother the person any more than I feel like I already am. So, but the people are, number one when it comes to why I travel. I want to go there to meet the people. Food is another thing. I, having come from a restaurant background, I eat 3 meals a day. I try to make food a big part of all my trips because I go to some of the best food cultures in the world too. So we do market walks and cooking demonstrations and classes, learn how olive oil tastings, things like that, tapa tours in Spain, where we go and try the tapas and things like that. Uh, walnut oil tasting, things like that, which I just love. So looking for those things. And then architecture is another sort of category that if you could capture the architecture in a place like Cuba, Havana, the architecture is very distinctive. You kind of know that you're in Havana or some of these other places in the world where they have a specific architecture. Again, it's all about telling that story. We're telling the story. Nothing to me that's more boring than having to. I went to go see one of the most famous photographers in the world one time to speak publicly. This is about 20 years ago, and um, one of the most famous photographers. But for an hour and a half, he just showed portraits of people, and they were some of the most beautiful photographs in the world, most interesting people you could imagine. But after the 20th or 30th photograph, even I was getting bored. I'm like, was there any architecture, night scenes, other, animals, anything else in this place but pictures of people's faces? And they weren't even environmental portraits, which, show more of the
Mhm.
background, where a portrait could be taken almost anywhere. Environmental portrait typically shows the foreground or background that helps tell the story.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess that's probably a tough thing because then you go there, you're hoping to take away so much, and what do you take away? You take away that, well, I know what not to do at this point.
Which is just as important,
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
And it's just as important what you include in the frame as what you exclude from it
Mhm.
too.
I know for me, one thing that was big is knowing, okay, so back when you had a lens on your camera, you were at the limit of whatever lens you had, and you had to get like move your feet, move your body to get in or out of the shot if you didn't have the zoom or you didn't switch or whatever. But now, being as the phones have so many different cameras in and they're different lenses, and some of the cameras are better quality than the other ones, knowing what photo or what lens or focal point on your camera is the best, using that one, and instead of trying to zoom, move forward or back or around to get that better shot and still use that best image quality camera that you have on your phone.
That's true. Yeah. To zoom with your feet in or out. Sometimes you can't get a focus, especially if you're doing something macro really
Mm,
close. So you have to move the camera in or out just to get the focus. And so, testing with that. I'm going to Lapland in about 3 weeks to photograph the Northern Lights.
mm.
And that's something that you can do with your smartphone very easily and a tripod. So, we're all mostly going up there with our smartphones to get those kinds of shots this winter. So that should be great.
Okay, so Ralph, given the nature of travel after the pandemic, and you've had travel on both sides of this now, how do you see the future of your tours catching on and continuing in this post-pandemic world? And then are there any emerging trends that travelers or photographers should be aware of as they're out and about?
I think that wellness is a big trend that's building even more momentum. It's been around for a long time, wellness travel, but more people are doing retreats, things like forest bathing, which I don't know if you've heard of forest bathing.
Mm-mm.
That's where people are taken out into a forest or a wild area, and it's meant to sort of absorb the forest into your soul and your body. It's a little woo woo, but it's along the lines of, stop, look, listen, feel that I'm talking about, but it's taking in your surroundings. And we can do that. It's really not woo woo. We're just opening up our senses to what's around us. Where typically we're almost blocking it out on purpose. And these smartphones, as great as they are, they're made to take us away from wherever we are.
Mm-mm.
And they're great for that. Now, you're watching TV and you want to look up someone's IMDb or net worth, whatever, you're there. But that's also the problem, is that now, let's say you're on this amazing once in a lifetime vacation and you're on your phone and now you're back home with someone else or your friends, or you're telling them about the trip, missing out on what's happening right now. And so to me, that's super important, is that idea of be here now. And you don't have to be on vacation or, traveling to do this. Let's be here now wherever we are.
Yeah. So, okay, many people say that travel changes the way that you will see the world. Can you can you share an experience where you've traveled and that travel has significantly impacted your perspective or given you opportunity for personal growth?
It's hard for me to choose a specific incident, but I go to some really interesting places, India, Cambodia, Vietnam, Bhutan, Nepal, um, Armenia, Georgia. And the people that I meet in these places are very different from us or me culturally, but they have so much to teach, and I have so much to learn from them. Perhaps maybe even they could learn something from me. I don't know. But we, especially as US citizens, we often think that what we do is the right way, the only way, and why isn't everyone else doing it that way? And it's just not true. And the more you travel, the more you realize that there are other ways of looking at things. There's different ways of doing things, different perspectives. And I'm open to learning from those and perhaps make my my load easier because I learned a trick from someone else. But I love to learn these different perspectives from people and because otherwise we get too sort of caught up in our own world and don't realize that there's a whole world out there that's different, but yet we are still all very much the same.
Yes. So, Ralph, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insights with us here today. And before we wrap up here, what would be the best way for the listeners who wanted to get in contact with you to learn more about you and your trips that you offer? And then, what are some key takeaways you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Sure. So if people go to continentaldrifter.co, that's the hub of everything that I do. My YouTube channel's there, or you can go directly youtube.com/Continental Drifter. But on the website, you can see all the trips I have coming up, blog posts that I've written, podcasts I've been on, some merchandise, my books, things like that. Those are available on Amazon. If you wanted to, you're welcome to put a link to those in the show notes. Um, what else? The if it, What I'd like to do is offer your listeners a $200 discount off of any future trip if they mention the podcast or mention your name. I will give them $200 off any future trip, and not good with any other offer, but just a little something. And if you come to my website, continentaldrifter.co, you'll get a pop up there that is a the 52 categories of a shot list book that I came up with after the app came out of the App Store. So I created a book out of it. So all the information from the app is in that book that you'll get as a free download for joining the email list.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'll be sure to put the links to those in the show notes. And do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways you'd like to leave the listeners with?
I just want to reiterate that idea of being here now. Just, I mean, as people get older, I think we start to appreciate the idea of slowing down, taking it all in, not rushing around, not trying to multitask and do three or four things at a time like I always do. And I'm always thinking, oh boy, I'm saving time because I'm doing these four things at once when I'm not doing any of them well,
Mm.
so keep that in mind. But life's too short not to travel. It's my tagline, but I truly believe that because um, we don't get to the end of life and say we wish we had worked more. Typically, it's we wish we would have done more and met more people, had more experiences, and oftentimes that includes travel. So get out there and travel. Someday never comes. I'm going to do it when I retire, when I've got enough money, when I've got enough time. Well, how many people have you heard retired and the next week they die
Mm.
and didn't take advantage of anything?
Mm.
So do it now.
Yes. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you. And then again, I'll be sure to leave the links for everything in the show notes for those. And to our listeners, keep exploring and remember every journey is a chance to capture your world in new and meaningful ways. Onward and upward.